and welcome to another episode of the Data Dialogues podcast. Today, we'll be discussing 10 ways the history of Thanksgiving is nothing like you imagined. I am your host, Larisa Bedgood, head of marketing here at PGM, and with me today, I have Kristin Jones, who is marketing manager here at PGM. So welcome, Kristin.
Hey, Larisa. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So to kick this off, we're coming upon Thanksgiving here, another month or so, and some of you might have an inkling the story of Thanksgiving isn't exactly what you learned in school. However, some of the history that we are going to be covering is pretty shocking. So think of frozen Arctic explorers to, like this one, we're going to be talking about Ragamuffin Day trick-or-treating. And of course, here at PGM, we have a lot of holiday insights to drive your targeting. We know holidays, I don't know if this is true, aren't just about food and family. They are, maybe not, but they're also huge moments for brands. We build audiences around seasonal shoppers, holiday travelers, gift givers, and even those big ticket buyers who use the season to upgrade their homes. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into 10 little known Thanksgiving stories that shape the holiday as we know it today. So kick us off, Kristin.
All right. So back in 1978, explorer Martin Frobisher set out through the icy Canadian Arctic, hoping to find the Northwest Passage, but it did not go smoothly. One of his ships was lost to the ice, but instead of giving up, he and his crew stopped, held mass, shared a simple meal, and gave thanks for simply surviving. That moment is what's now Frobisher Bay. It's actually recognized as the very first Canadian Thanksgiving, more than 40 years before the Pilgrims ever sat down in Plymouth. So there wasn't just turkey, stuffing, pumpkin pie. Their meal was salted beef and stale crackers. Yummy.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Love it. But it gets better. At number 9, the Pilgrims actually ate lobster, swan, and seal. But wait. So let's rewind to 1621. That's when the very first U.S. Thanksgiving feast took place. The Pilgrims invited their Wampanoag neighbors to celebrate a successful harvest. And back when we think of Thanksgiving today, we obviously picture a giant turkey in the middle of the table. Back then, though, turkey was not really one of the dishes on their menu. Not the star of the show as we know it today. The real spread, you ask? It was yum. Venison, I guess that's pretty tasty for those who like it. Pigeons, lobster, clams, swan, and even seal, which no thank you. Basically whatever they can hunt, fish, or gather nearby. And forget the pumpkin pie, stuffing, cranberry sauce. They didn't even have ovens, flour, or sugar. Those came much later. So if you really want to create an authentic Thanksgiving meal today, you'd really have to probably carve up a swan. I don't know how you feel about that. I'm a pass.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to turkey and mashed potatoes.
Yeah, same. And stuffing. I do love a good stuffing.
And green bean casserole.
Okay, yes, for sure.
Yeah, that too. All right, number 8. The Pilgrims put the native chief's head on a stick. This title is already making me cringe a little bit. So the piece of that very first Thanksgiving, it didn't last very long. After the Indian chief Massasoit died, leadership passed on to his son, and his name was Wamsuta. Not long after, Wamsuta was invited to a feast with the Pilgrims, but he never made it home. Allegedly, he did die at the table, poisoning during the meal.
Because he ate seal.
Yeah, food poisoning. Y'all, let's stick to something else. Yeah. His brother, whose history often calls King Philip, stepped in next, and he wasn't looking for peace. He launched a war against the settlers, burning down half their towns and killing more than 600 people. But in the end, the conflict turned brutal. Metacornet was captured, killed, and his body was dismembered. The Pilgrims even placed his head on a pole in Plymouth and left it there for 25 years.
Okay, I have to just do a quick rewind. In this, what you mentioned, what we're reading, the notes that we have, it says that he killed 600 colonists. And then the next line says, but in the end, it actually turned brutal. I feel that's actually brutal already.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I was like, it already was pretty bad. I mean, it did
Yeah.
get really bad, but it was already brutal. So,
Yeah, I think that was funny. I'm like, okay. All right. So I like this one. Back in the 1800s, Thanksgiving wasn't just about turkey and family dinners and seal. It actually came with a strange little tradition called Ragamuffin Day. So all started when children would beg for food in the holiday. And the wealthier kids decided to copy the idea. Aw, they dress up in rags, knock on doors, and ask something for Thanksgiving, like an early version of trick-or-treating. The ritual caught on fast, and people would hand out pennies, apples, or candy to the kids in costume. For decades, Thanksgiving in some towns looked more like Halloween, with children roaming the streets pretending to be beggars. That is crazy, though.
it is. I did not know that.
Yeah, no. By the time of the Great Depression, things had changed. Families just didn't have spare coins or treats, and the tradition of mock begging started to feel less funny and more cruel. And just like that, Ragamuffin Day faded into history.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. It didn't, it sounded pretty pretentious and not,
Exactly, I
not
agree.
cool. Yeah. All right. Taking us to number 6, the Thanksgiving tradition of, oh, goodness. All right. I'm going to just start this one off. Okay. In New York, Ragamuffin Day took a pretty harsh turn. We're going off of Ragamuffin now. Some adults thought it would be funny to heat pennies on the stove until they were scorching hot and then toss them out into the street. So the kids, they were desperate to grab up these coins during their Thanksgiving begging, and they would scoop them up, only to get their fingers burnt and sometimes badly enough to blister. But here's the really interesting and wild part: adults later laughed it off as all in good fun. The sound of children yelping in pain was their entertainment. That is just sick. And then today, this is obviously cruel, and but back then, they say it was just another bizarre Thanksgiving custom. So thankfully, this one didn't survive either. Ay.
I prefer Ragamuffin today, much, much more.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so number 5, we wouldn't have Thanksgiving without Mary Had a Little Lamb. So Sarah Josepha Hale wasn't just the woman behind the nursery rhyme Mary Had a Little Lamb. She also spent more than 30 years lobbying to make Thanksgiving a national holiday. To her, Thanksgiving wasn't just about food. I mean, it is, but okay. No, I'm kidding. It was about unity, gratitude, and giving families a reason to come together. She really pushed the idea everywhere she could, in her magazine, through her novels, and in letters to politicians. By the mid 1800s, 30 states were already celebrating Thanksgiving. And honestly, without her persistence, Thanksgiving might not have ever made it nationwide. I think that is such a cute story. And I love that it was the author of Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Oh, yeah, me too. Wow. Definitely didn't know that. All right. Number 4, Thanksgiving became a holiday to end the Civil War. During the Civil War, Sarah Josepha Hale took her campaign for Thanksgiving all the way to President Lincoln. She urged him to make it a national holiday, something that could unify the deeply divided country at the time. So Lincoln listened. Just 5 days later, he issued a proclamation asking Americans everywhere to just pause and give thanks, in the hope the gratitude might lift Union morale and help stitch together the nation at war with itself. But the reality looked very different depending on where you lived, right? So in the North, families carved turkeys. In the South, where food was scarce, people held quote unquote starvation parties, pretending to feast without food. All right, I'm trying to wrap my brain around that one.
It's
But
crazy.
yeah,
That's so sad. Like a starvation party. Oh,
That does not sound fun.
Oh, I
Goodness.
send them a seal. I don't know.
Or a swan.
A swan. All right. So number three, Lincoln wanted it to be a day of humiliation and fasting. Ooh. So before Sarah Hale's influence, Lincoln had a very different idea for a new holiday in 1861. He pictured a solemn day of public humiliation, prayer, and fasting. Americans, he thought, should bow their heads, confess their sins, and ask for forgiveness as a nation. The goal was repentance, seeking divine help to end the Civil War. Obviously, though, let's be honest, people are not lining up to trade turkey for self-imposed starvation. The fasting idea quickly faded, and the celebratory version of the Thanksgiving that we know today is the one that stuck. Yay!
Yeah. It's like the polar opposite of what Thanksgiving is today, because now it's like, eat
Exactly.
as much as you can until your back hurts, like type of
Exactly. So
mentality.
true.
Oh, goodness. All right. Bringing us down to number 2. Lincoln's son begged for the first turkey's life. In 1863, the Lincolns were given a live turkey for their White House Thanksgiving meal. 10-year-old Tad Lincoln quickly grew attached, though, to the turkey, and he was horrified once he realized that it was going to make it to the dinner table. So he begged his father to spare it, insisting the turkey had as good of a right to live as anybody else. My heart.
I know.
Abraham Lincoln listened and was moved by his son's plea, and he did grant the bird its freedom, effectively creating the very first presidential turkey pardon. The tradition faded over the years, but exactly a century later, in 1963, John F. Kennedy revived it when he spared a turkey of his own, just 3 days before his assassination, too, actually.
Wow. That's
I don't know.
crazy.
I love me some turkey and chicken, but if I had one as a pet, heck no, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
That's just a different kind of bond and relationship. Yeah.
exactly. And of course, I'm going to bring it back to another Little House on the Prairie episode. I did that earlier. I can't remember if it was this episode or another podcast that we did, but yeah, the little girl, she had a turkey and they didn't eat it, thankfully.
Good.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know about this one, but FDR actually changed the date to increase holiday profits. So in 1939, President Franklin D. Roosevelt decided to shake things up and he moved Thanksgiving up by 1 week. His reasoning wasn't based on tradition, it was money based. By adding more shopping days before Christmas, he hoped to give the economy a boost. But not everybody was thankful. The change was so controversial that critics mocked it as Franksgiving. Some states even refused to go along and kept the holiday on the old date, leaving families celebrating on a different day depending on where they lived. And eventually, a compromise was reached. Thanksgiving would officially be set on the fourth Thursday in November, exactly where it still sits today. Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. So as it turns out, this holiday's history is way stranger than obviously I remembered. I remember lots of stuffing, turkey, pies, and so forth at my grandma's. And no way, as we have discussed, I think, numerous times, we're not going to eat swan or seal. And come on, literally kids burning themselves on red pennies is not cool. Yeah. And honestly, Thanksgiving is still evolving. Some people are all in on the big family feast, and others, they're hitting the holiday sales. And plenty are already skipping ahead to plan for the next season. And that's, of course, where PGN comes in, helping brands connect with all those different holiday audiences. Whether it's families around the table, travelers on the road, or shoppers in full swing, we've got the data to help you reach them. So on that note, thank you all for hanging out with us on Data Dialogues. Stay data-driven, stay creative, and we'll catch you next time.